The pre-show is always even more interesting than the pre-show. Howdy, folks. Happy Thursday. Anthony will be joining us in a little bit from the road, but we'll start off with Russ and myself. Go ahead, Russ. Pre-show.
Team Russ, check the Twitter timeline. Anyhow, let's talk about the never-ending saga of Ben Simmons. Here's where we are. He hasn't played this year. He hasn't played for the Sixers. He showed up 10 minutes for camp so he can get paid for a little bit of camp, and he hasn't been there since. He still claims he has mental health issues. So the GM of the team met with him and his agent yesterday at some restaurant in Philly. I wonder who picked up the tab. That'd be an interesting one. Maybe they split it. And basically what came out of it was Ben Simmons said the mental health hurdle is still too much for him to play with the Sixers. Didn't say the league. And the Sixers are like, yeah, that's great, Ben, but unless we get really great value for you, we're not trading you. So I never want to make light of mental health issues because it's been in my family. But it really would be terrible if this is all just to get traded, and it does look that way. Because otherwise, why wouldn't you say you couldn't play just the season because you're having mental health issues? Why would it clear up if you left Philadelphia?
Well, is he getting paid?
I don't think he is.
Well, because, I mean, you could say that mental health issues as an excuse would be valid. I mean, that's the thing. If all of a sudden he says, well, no, I'm not having mental health issues, and, they were docking. I don't know if they're docking his pay because he's unavailable.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they're still docking him.
Okay. Well, right now it's a staring contest, and this is the problem. His value was already depressed because I can't hit a shot from 3-point range. He's a pretty good defensive player. I think he was all NBA defensive player.
He was,
and an effective player at the other end when it's not shooting. So I'm sure his value is there, but I'm sure that it's limited based on the guy being a former number 1 overall pick. I mean, eventually he's going to get traded. You know that. I mean, this is just going to be
He's the 13th highest paid player in the NBA. Mm-hmm. And I honestly can't recall anybody else other than James Harden, who did try and weasel a little bit at the end with Houston, to this degree. Like, this is just it's just crazy to me.
And maybe he'll take the same tack as James Harden. Maybe he'll come back and he'll just be fat and out of shape, and that's what he because he basically threatened to the Rockets. Oh yeah, I'll show up and play. I just won't play well. I don't want to be here. Right. So that tactic worked. But yeah.
One more tactic. The Nets, the Brooklyn Nets, do have Kyrie Irving back for the road, and all of a sudden Durant's not playing well, and Harden is Harden, and so now they're like, maybe they can't win a championship. And my take on that is, it's the curse of Dr. J. I hope the Nets never win a championship, and so far it's holding up, and I wish no success to them.
Well, I despise the trio of Wade and LeBron and Bosh in Miami. I despise, any team that especially with what Harden did to get there. Kyrie Irving is a flake of the highest order. He's a professional shit disturber. He's been that way the last few years. He just undercuts his own team. He did it in Boston. He did it in Cleveland. He's doing it now with Brooklyn. The funny thing that I heard yesterday, Russ, was the fact that apparently the Nets could have had him, and probably still could have him, play both home on the and on the road if they agreed to pay an $80,000 fine.
But they won't pay it.
But they won't. Either they won't pay it, or the NBA won't allow them to pay it because it would basically be, okay, you're violating COVID rules, and here's the fine. Well, they
Yeah.
want them to apply. They want them to adhere to the COVID rules, so they can't pay the fine. So he's stuck. Yeah, Timothy in the chat. We'll discuss that in a minute here, but yeah, let's.
And I'll just say that Funky noted there was something he wanted us to know. I saw it. I don't care.
I didn't see it, so
I know it's fine.
Okay. All right. Hello, Hockey World. Today is Thursday, January 13th, 2022.
I'm Russ Cohen from Sportsology.
And I'm Michael Lagello, and this is the Hockey Buzzcast here on HockeyBuzz.com. All right, since everybody is talking about it in the chat, we'll start with we'll start with one of the games last night. We'll talk about all three of them, but we'll start with the game that I stayed up till 1 o'clock in the morning and actually stayed late.
I watched the beginning, I missed the second, and I watched the whole third.
Yeah. And I stayed up after that because of the vitriol of a statement that I made by some of Leaf followers on Twitter, and I'll fully defend it. But okay, the Leafs lose to the Arizona Coyotes 2-1. Karel Vejmelka with a standout 45 save performance against the Leafs. I saw something, and honestly, I don't know what some of these special stats mean, but Shayna Goldman on Twitter tweeted 4.89 goals saved above expected for Vejmelka against the Leafs. So I don't know.
That means that's analytically that's a good performance. Like that's they should have had more goals, but my contention was, and what the team that I saw in the third period, aside from the Austin Matthews goal, was getting tired, was getting spaced out by the defense on Arizona, which was tremendously compromised. But Victor Soderstrom played his best game as a pro. There's no doubt about that. And they made the Leafs work for every inch of the ice. And even at the end of the game, with the extra man, Clayton Keller outskated Morgan Riley to negate an icing, which was a key play at the end of the game. Like this was a bad third period effort by them. It just
and okay, second of back-to-back games, I get that, but the first two periods they had 35 shots on goal on Vejmelka. Mm-hmm. They really pressed offensively. They created a number of chances. He was really, really great, and I give him full credit. But my contention after the game, and again, Matthews tied it up 1-1 a few seconds into the third period, and then Ryan Dzingel scores a goal. Two goals that weren't particularly great on Peter Mrazek.
Let's talk about the Dzingel one because
they're both Dzingel.
Yeah, it was the second one. Okay. Darren Pang mentioned, and I thought this was kind of weird too, when Mrazek's trying to break up the pass to go when they're trying the 2-on-1, that's not a great percentage move by the goalie, because if you don't do it, you're fully hung out to dry, and you've done that. And it's better to try and guess on that, in my estimation. And Pang said, he just thought that was not a great play. So
he tried to go for a poke check and missed. And TJ Brody misplayed it.
It's not a poke check. A poke check is a puck that's sitting there and you poke it away. This is a guy passing it, and he's trying to stop the pass. That's what he's trying to do as a goalie. That's really hard to do. I think that was a bad play. It just was.
And as we welcome Anthony to the show in motion here on the
just started in motion here.
But this is my contention after the game, and of course I apparently said the wrong thing to a bunch of Leaf fans when they were feeling.
No, you didn't say the wrong thing. You just said anything to the Leaf fans because they were mad.
Right, and then this is the thing. It's like I don't think it was a statement that was ridiculous. I think it, and what I said was, the Leafs lost 2-1 to the Coyotes, and not only just the Coyotes without Chychrun, without Strawman, without their head coach. They had Phil Housley behind the bench with a defense that I think two players were playing their first NHL. Well, one is definitely playing his first NHL game. One I think had played a couple. with barely any offense, with guys who had been cast off by the Leafs like Alex Galchenyuk and Travis Boyd. And I said, because this was a game in hand that they had on Florida and on Tampa. And I said, these are the type of games that Florida and Tampa don't lose. So I had a bunch of jamokes on social media sending me box scores of Ottawa beating Tampa or Ottawa beating Florida. And I responded to them and said, Anthony, I said, gee, let me look at the Ottawa Senators line. And don't get me wrong, the Ottawa Senators are having a terrible year right now. But look at the Ottawa Senators right now. Tim Stützle, Brady Tkachuk, Drake Batherson, Thomas Chabot. Nobody on the Coyotes is even close to those guys. This is a friggin' AHL team. Are you giving me a effing break? It's unbelievable.
Pick the F word, Michael. Come on.
Yeah, fudge. But
listen, you're also speaking to you're go ahead, finish. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
No, I mean, listen, you're also talking to someone who also, stepped in doo-doo with the fan base by speaking some modicum of truth earlier this week with regards to the draft decisions of Ron Hextall.
Oh, we're going to talk about that in a few minutes.
Oh, I'm sure we will. That was fun times. But I know the feeling of trying to speak truth and trying to speak, logic, and Monday morning quarterbacking comes out real quickly.
Hey, the week before they tried to get me on that too. So we've all had experiences lately.
Yeah, it's like, okay. People comparing Detroit and Ottawa to Arizona. If you're comparing Montreal, who's almost bereft of talent right now because of injury, and Price is out now, Jake Allen is out. Most of their quality forwards are either injured or some. They had Ben Sherratt on the power play point last night against the Bruins. Okay, or Buffalo, who is definitely doing as much of a strip down as Arizona. But Arizona, on top of a roster of cast-offs, was their best defenseman and their second best defenseman or most experienced defenseman out with either injury or COVID. Their coach was out, and really they put 18 shots on goal on Peter Mrazek. So this is a game.
That was Housley coaching, right?
Yes. This is a game that a team that in Toronto's position, where I think for them to advance in the playoffs, they have to win the Atlantic Division. You cannot lose to a piece of crap team like the Arizona.
But don't you think, Mike? Don't you think that was Phil Housley's revenge on you for things you had said about Housley as a coach? Don't you feel like that was high up on his agenda?
Are you telling me that they were not justified of what Phil Housley was as a coach? Are you kidding me?
I didn't say that, but I'm just saying everybody's always looking to.
You're being such a cackling troll right now, I swear.
No, please. When Dzingel scored the goal, Russ was like, "Hey, the Leafs are playing really well, aren't they?"
No, I didn't say that. I actually
something to that effect.
Yeah.
But anyway, so no, I mean, I will take, not that I want, I didn't have, there was no benefit for me. This was not like a, somebody was saying that this was a, some sort of, what's the term, Russ, that, that I was looking to.
Oh yeah, you weren't looking to get clicks or likes. Yeah, you weren't trying clickbait here.
This is okay. I didn't write this for my blog and put it out there. This was something that I said on Twitter. I fully back. And you can disagree with me if you want. People got a little insulting, and I'm like, okay, well, enjoy your mute. And I have no problem with saying that if you didn't follow me and you were saying something, I muted your ass and you deserve it. But I'm sorry.
Please put that in your Twitter profile. I will mute your ass.
I like that. I think I will. I think I'll copyright that. Anyway, so it was not a good evening for Leaf fans, because that's a game they need to win and they didn't win. And yes, they're without Marner, and yes, they're without Pierre Engvall, and but that's you and Sheldon Keefe after the game, Russ, was like, this team, the last 3 games hasn't shown up in the third period. They're playing, their conditioning is in question. We didn't finish.
I think the conditioning in question part, though, is, again, we have a number of players I think that are coming in off of COVID, and that has to be obviously the problem is when the minute we refer to conditioning, people automatically think that, players, are you accusing the players of being, lazy or something like that?
Yeah, no, it's not that.
It's not. It's just anybody who's had, in terms of, when we're talking about, how much breathing comes into play here and how much COVID can affect your breathing capacity and how that affects everything else about how well you're going to be able to play. I think that's more of the direction that I guess maybe we have to look for a different phrasing other than conditioning, because people automatically think it's, you guys are busy at home eating Cheetos on your quarantine.
Right.
Now, Mike, is this a complete day off for the Leafs so they could all play golf in Arizona?
There's no practice. It's a complete day. So they get the day off after that. Great.
They get rewarded with nice weather and golf after playing a horrible game.
Yeah. And so enjoy Leaf fans. Enjoy Leafs. Yes. But anyway, so I wanted to bring this up because first of all, the early game last night was a TNT doubleheader, and they had a couple winners. So they had Montreal-Boston, which was a tire fire of a game. I think it was 5-1 final with Brad Marchand with a hat trick, and then the second half was Leafs and Arizona, that barn burner. During the game, Anthony, they had Brad Marchand mic'd, which is never a good idea because honestly, it's like, come, we know what Brad Marchand is.
It's bad for you. You come on, Marchand. No, it's actually good to have Marchand because that's exactly what you want something, especially if it's TNT, who is already we already have seen, and I've enjoyed it. I have actually enjoyed the studio show. Some people may not like it. I've enjoyed it because it's had some personality to it.
It does.
While still being lot of the hardcore stuff we have from obviously more of the hardcore stuff that we have from NBC Sports from before.
Well, Biz Nasty has contributed to that, I have to say, because last night, first he looked like Davy Crockett wearing some sort of thing on his head.
The Coyotes thing that they used to get when they were playing.
Oh, he had a Coyote hat on his head.
Yeah. So he was wearing that, which I was like, I did a double take.
That was enjoyable. I enjoyed that, and I'm sure Leaf Nation hated it, but
because he put the Malokia on the Leafs. He said it was their trap game. But no, I actually enjoyed when he tried to break. He was
right.
He was right.
That's good analysis on this, and that's fine.
He tried to break a composite stick over his leg and basically gave himself a bone bruise. That was wonderful.
I didn't see that. That was pretty dumb if he did that.
Yep, he did. Where's Gretzky, by the way? I would have expected.
He said he's not making every show, so I think he has trouble probably coming over the border a certain amount. I think he's only, or if he's living in LA, maybe he's worried about being in the studio. I don't know.
Okay.
Because I know he said last time
it's a certain number of appearances maybe that he comes on. If it's major, like Stanley Cup final, definitely. Events like that, I get that impression here, and they have enough of a panel, I think, right now that that it works with him or without him for the most part. And again,
it does.
Biz adds the bit of that Barkley-esque looniness that you're looking for, where you don't know what's going to come out of his mouth.
Yeah, Bissonnette is definitely trying to be Barkley here.
Yeah,
but I think Biz is being who he is, though. At the end of the day,
who he is.
This is who he is.
Yeah, I'm not saying he's playing it up. I'm saying he's that colorful. I mean, we've seen from the Pink Whitney commercials and stuff like that. That's his ebullient personality. So I
did want to mention this, Mike, because it was brought up on my timeline, and I agree with it. If I were voting on the league MVP, Marchand's in the running. He's in the top 5.
Sure. Yeah, I think.
I wouldn't argue with that. I think that's pretty accurate. He's shouldered that team right now, and they're on a good burner right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think he's up there with obviously the two guys in Edmonton and Matthews and Ovechkin.
Yeah.
So yeah. The other game last night was Dallas and the Seattle Kraken, and Joe Pavelski with 2 goals and 3 assists in a 5-2 win over the Kraken. Now, this is the question. And okay, right now, Dallas is 3 points out of a playoff spot. They're 3 points behind San Jose for the second wild card, so they're in the race. But they really have a dilemma, Russ, because you've got Klingberg, you've got Pavelski. I think they have 1 or 2 other guys who are UFAs, and if they're not in it, they could reap the whirlwind when it comes to a return on all these players. But if they're in the race, then they're in the race, and they're not going to trade them.
Yeah, I don't know how much Pavelski's going to bring. I don't think he's going to get a high first or anything. You might get a team that's going to give up like a 27, 8, 9, 30 first. I do want to say to Funky, if I'm voting for the Hart,
Well, I mean, it's going to be a contending.
On the list.
It's going to be a contending team.
Right.
Yeah. You're obviously not going to garner a high first because.
Well, not a high first because a team that's trading for a Pavelski.
No, but you could be trading them to Edmonton and they don't make it and it becomes like 15-16. You can.
Yeah, I mean, most likely any team that's on the borderline like that is going to lottery protect their first, and if they don't, their GM is stupid. So
I remember a GM that didn't, Mike.
I know that was back in the day. Russ. And gee, who was the big critic of that deal? Let me see. I remember.
You mean beside me? Probably you.
Well, yes. Even before it happened,
It's always about Russ.
Well, I mean, I had seen the guy actually play. At that point, he never played for the Leafs.
I'm having fun with you.
He never even. I know. Anyhow, but the interesting thing is Klingberg is an interesting one because he's no different than Tyson Barrie. Like honestly, I'm not giving up a first for Klingberg. I'll give you a good prospect.
Somebody's going to give up.
Somebody's going to be stupid.
Somebody's giving up a first for John Klingberg.
If somebody's giving up a first for Ben Sherratt, somebody's giving up a first.
I would be stunned beyond words if John Klingberg doesn't garner a first round.
I would take a first for. I would give a first for Ben Sherratt over Klingberg.
Okay, here are the Dallas Stars UFAs: Pavelski, Radulov, Klingberg, Sekera, and Braden Holtby.
Listen, Sekera, somebody will take him for a 7th, right? I mean,
a 7th?
I don't think Dallas is going to clean up at the deadline. I don't.
I don't think they're going to clean up, but I think they'll get it. I think they're looking at, if they do a sell-off, the return will be somewhere in the B minus range.
See, I think Pavelski and Klingberg are A's. I think they're.
But that's what I'm saying. If we're talking cleanup here, then yeah.
Have you seen the year that he's having?
I have, Mike. And you know what? Again, he will hurt you too on the ice. So it's not like when you get John Klingberg, he's going to transform your whole team.
Okay. If the Rangers are not, and I'm not talking about Klingberg.
He's a bad guy. They should never. That would be. I would take Ben Sherratt over John Klingberg for the Rangers.
Let me finish. I was saying I'm not talking about Klingberg here. I'm talking about Pavelski. If the Rangers are in it at the deadline, or in the top 3, and they think they have a legitimate chance to, would you trade Vitaly Kravtsov for Pavelski?
Yeah, me personally, I wouldn't, but they would because they have no use for him.
Okay.
So yes, they would.
You don't believe that Pavel? I look at it from the point of view of you don't.
It's a UFA rental. It's an older UFA rental.
I agree with you, but in terms of the fact that we're talking about a player who can produce, who does produce in the playoffs, is willing to go to those areas of the ice that you really need to get to go to those areas of the ice in the playoffs. I think Pavelski can definitely be a weapon for the Rangers.
I mean, Pavelski can play the wing and can still play center. So
Yeah, I just don't want.
I think he has a lot of utility for a team like
I wouldn't want to give him Kravtsov. That's my whole thing. I'm not giving him that, but they would.
Yeah. Well, you want Nichols on you know.
No, that's not true. But I'm talking about a guy that if he plays in the NHL,
he's throwing around Nichols like Mantle Cup.
Here's a nickel for Pavelski.
No. The idea is this. You're talking about a guy, if he plays in the NHL, will play for 10 years, where Pavelski is going to play on a short-lived cup run. The Rangers aren't going to the Stanley Cup with Joe Pavelski, so this isn't a smart trade.
I mean, if you're – well, that's what I'm saying, though. The Rangers are fit for rentals simply because they have the cap space this year.
Right, but that doesn't mean they're going to win the Cup, so why give up all their best assets just so they can have 2 rounds of the playoffs?
I didn't say all their best assets. I said Kravtsov. I said
he's one of their best assets.
Well, yeah, but I mean, if this is a guy that's never going to play for you ever, then you use him as an asset to get something that helps you now.
That's fine. I mean, they're going to do that. So yes, it would happen.
Okay. On the latest on the Evander Kane saga, there was one report that Kane has already agreed to $1.5 million 1-year prorated deal with Edmonton, which is not a shock because we've heard that leaking out over the last 24 to 48 hours. But then,
but noted insider Tim Peel.
Yeah, well, but there were others.
I know Sean Simpson as well.
Simpson's pretty reliable. I know Sean.
Yes, I would agree with that.
But what we're talking about now is, there seems to be a hold up here while the investigation by the NHL continues, and there's also some indication that Kane could get suspended again for violating COVID protocol. So we don't know where this is going to go.
This is all in here, Mike. Seriously, this is what's happening. Simpson says they have to sign him so that he could be suspended and then come back after the suspension. So he's not getting a season-long suspension.
Right,
He'll
exactly.
He'll get a couple of game suspension. He'll already be signed, and then he'll be playing the minute he's done with that. I mean, we all know this is what's going to happen.
Now, I think what was more peculiar and more interesting was the reaction of Connor McDavid when asked about Kane and the potential of him being signed. And McDavid offered sort of like, well, I mean, he's got off the ice problems.
I don't want to say it was flippant, but I don't want to say it was a flippant response, Mike. But there was it was almost like he already kind of knows, and that he's gonna that Kane's got a foot in the door at least, likely to be his teammate. So he's almost already going into teammate defense mode here.
Right.
But what Russ and I were talking about this, and what we were saying was, is this an acknowledgement by McDavid that right now he would sign up for somebody being a serial killer on his team if he get to get them a win. And
that's pretty much the answer he gave. So yeah, the answer is yes.
Ask your general manager that question.
But here's my other thing, Anthony.
Yeah.
He didn't have to go all in with Kenny Holland and say, well, whatever Kenny does, I support him. He doesn't have to do that. Connor McDavid's spot on the team is safe. No matter what Connor McDavid says, he's not getting traded. It's not going to hurt him. He's not getting benched. And he doesn't have to be such a company guy, but he is.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's something to be said for that, I guess, but, at the same time, and when it comes to McDavid, we don't tend to sort of extract much personality out of him to begin with. So it's almost like when we see something like this, it's kind of throws us for a little bit for a loop too.
Yeah, I get okay, from the point of view of McDavid, I get I want to win, and anything that can help us win, fine. But we know what any team who signed Evander Kane is signing up for. That's why, like Russ, you were saying, with Toronto, it would have been a circus. I think it would have been able to have been handled by their PR staff, and they would have limited his availability to the media. But in the end, it would have been what he did off the ice and would it get out. in Edmonton, there's not much to do off the ice. So, I mean, maybe that's a good thing for him instead of playing in Vegas, where there'd be a ton of distraction. And I know I'm going to probably catch crap from a bunch of people.
Well, yeah, I mean, you have that the minute you make that statement, Mike. You're obviously in crap catching mood, for the last few days. So,
but Anthony, compared to Vegas, compared to Toronto,
right? That's what he's saying.
Right? No, obvious. Yeah, exactly.
That's why I mentioned Minnesota, because in Minnesota, it's also hard to get into trouble in the winter.
You think?
Unless you're ice.
Someone hasn't seen Fargo.
I've seen it.
Unless you're ice fishing like Dustin Bufflin, so
right.
then you would be getting in trouble. But yeah, so I mean,
we didn't go into Cabela's and really research that, but all right, fine.
Okay, Anthony, I got to ask on this because we talked about it yesterday with Kevin, and I heard the comments of Elliot Friedman, who thought that Bobby Clark going to bat or attacking Ron Hextall with a ad hominem shot, basically saying that Ron Hextall cut off everybody in the organization and locked the room and said, "I'm taking Nolan Patrick," was a way to defend Chuck Fletcher and deflect the fact that, this is still essentially a Hextall team, which I think is a load of crap. They made a bunch of changes in the offseason. This is it's not
a hybrid. I would call it a hybrid. And they made these offseason moves, and I think for the most part, the moves, their intentions were in the right direction in terms of when you look at the individual parts of the players that they've acquired. They were looking for more of a shoot first forward. Cam Atkinson obviously fit the bill. They were looking for a bit more physicality, but also some skill from their back line. You go get Ryan. And again, a lot of this does come around to, how much of an effect does a Ryan Ellis have on your blue line? And Bill Meltzer obviously kind of interestingly pointed out as he was watching the Bruins game from October, how much of an effect that first pair had on that game of Ellis and Provorov. And does that really sort of change the complexion of the team? But then if you subtract it, you should be able to figure out a way to get around that. If Ivan Provorov is a number one level defenseman in the NHL, which I think we're all in agreement right now, he is not. He might be a solid 2, but he's not a number 1. So you look at all those things. You look at Ristolainen. He's had a pretty solid season, I would say. Ristolainen, I think it's been pretty good. Martin Jones has been okay. He's had good games where he's on his hand, and then other games where he hasn't been. He is expected as NHL backup. There's been a number of things that I think have derailed the team, that some of which have been in their control and others have been outside of their control as well. So I think but getting back to Clark, I think there's a lot of frustration because they know they're getting closer and closer to that trade deadline. They're getting closer and closer to a decisions on what they're going to be as a team, and they still have no idea who they are in this circumstance. So,
yeah. Well, all right,
and that's where the frustration I think stems from. And he can lash out at Ron Hextall all he wants about the draft. We've heard enough conversations about who the Flyers were considering in the room. It also really, what it does is it really kind of pulls the curtain back on just how bad things have got there at the end between Hextall and the rest of team management in this circumstance at the very end. But
Anthony, we were all at that draft. Okay. Yeah. Nobody was saying Heiskanen or Makar were going to go 1-2.
Nope.
Nobody. It's revisionist history to say that was even considered.
And that was my point of what I was making to a lot of Flyer fans, is that, and of course, phrasing of it was the fact that, fans would have lost their marbles if they would have taken the other 2 defensemen over Nolan Patrick.
Right.
But here's a couple of other things, okay? The Flyers had no player development, no good player development before Hextall. Matter of fact, he inserted a lot of layers that they still currently use when he was there. Ron Hextall wasn't there long enough to see some of these players through in even half of their development, if you want to blame them. But again, that team couldn't take home run swings when they needed guys to get to the NHL quickly. We all knew that, and they all were looking through that lens, Chris Pryor and the rest of them. They do have a lot of players from Ron Hextall's era, a lot of them. And if you didn't have those guys and you had your one superstar that you're talking about and a bunch of other guys, it wouldn't be any better. But I think Ron Hextall, Bob Clark is doing what Bob Clark does, and he's protecting Fletcher because he knows Fletcher's going to get a ton of blame the minute this season ends, and Bob Clark knows about taking blame and how to pass it off because he did it a million times.
Yeah, and I think that's how I view the situation as well, is that he's trying to be the organization. He's trying to be an organizational shield.
Yep.
But in reality, again, you also, when you get into revisionist history, now, again, there's been enough talk. I've heard enough about alternatives in that draft that the scouting staff was potentially looking at. We've heard these stories ad nauseum in this circumstance. That being said, the general manager does have the right to make the call that they feel strongest about. And that was kind of my point in that circumstance.
Yes, that's his prerogative.
All the scouts do. The scouts' job is. And my question is, again, the whole, everybody in the room wanted Makar. Do we know that Clark obviously would know somewhat of that, but I'm sure there was also I honestly believe that Hextall, if there would have been that much, shoe hammering on the table, that Hextall would have been like, would have thought of that in that circumstance.
Clark got that wrong, because apparently he said to Andy Strickland and Cam Jansen that it was Makar when Elliot Friedman reported it was Heiskanen that they were
right, and that's been my point for a while, was that it was, and there's been enough talk back and forth about this that I've heard that it was Heiskanen, and again, to me, it was also, who's the name du jour right now?
Makar.
What will make your general manager, what will make the current situation look better to say, hey, our scouts wanted Makar? If you say Heiskanen, Heiskanen is a really, really good, is an amazingly good defenseman. Either of those two guys would have been good picks in this circumstance. But also the fact that Makar, again, is the name du jour right now.
Yeah.
And that's the one that's going to get people talking to say, well, our guys all said Makar.
Right. Okay. So
I think there's probably, in reality, in this circumstance, at least how I view it is, hearing it back and forth from both ends, is that there wasn't really probably a consensus in that room.
Is Bob now going to go back and talk about the Sam Moran pick with Paul Holmgren there?
Well, that's the thing. He now opens the
hold
door.
on. Let me finish that. Walking into the scout room on the Flyers special that they taped for the fans, and us kind of knowing where they had Sean Monahan ranked, and Holmgren looked at the board and he said, "This is it, guys. This is what you want me to go with." And he goes, "You think about this for a while." And he walked out mad. So it's not like that pick is being talked about, and that was way worse than anything that happened in the Hextall era.
I don't think there's anything in terms of this circumstance where a scouting staff, again, we have to remember the whole structure of things. Scouts will make the scouts' job is to scout the players and then make their suggestions to the general manager, who ultimately makes the final call.
Yes.
And you have to, and that's something that has to be abided by.
Yeah.
In this circumstance, even if you disagree with it,
scouts get overruled all the time. They know that.
Exactly. And it's like, and that's the part that, in listening to it, it's just, I get the opportunity to have a Cale Makar. And we look back at it now, it's Monday morning. Again, at this point now, we all remember this draft. We all were there. Makar, we knew his talent level, but there was some wild cardness to him.
Right.
But again, what Clark said bought Chuck Fletcher 2 or 3 weeks from not having the lens on him with the fan base at the trade deadline.
Correct.
Sweating out his job, he deflected all that. That's what Clark did.
And it was funny because Friedman accounted for the fact that there's a lot. There is not only because Hextall's in Pittsburgh now, so there's that natural.
Of course, there's that.
Yeah.
But there's that. But
I guarantee that's a major. I guarantee you,
it's
that's
a major thing. Yes.
Part.
But he also
because of the Penguins having that much success right now.
But Friedman also recounted a story when Hextall left for L.A. and this was the Giroux draft, where Hextall left for L.A. At a point where he knew who was on the Flyers draft board, and apparently the Flyers wanted Trevor Lewis, and that's who the Kings, who picked ahead of the Flyers, took. And when Clark, everybody remembers him going up to the podium and not knowing Giroux's name. It was
because he thought Sanguinetti was going to be there for the Flyers,
right? But so was Lewis was the guy even ahead of Sanguinetti,
right?
So he was caught. He was embarrassed because he looked clueless there. But there's always been this apparently rivalry and animosity between Hextall and Clark. So I'm sure all these are contributing factors. It just it's just a stew.
But like Anthony said, the worst thing for all of this is that the curtains peel back, and this is the look, and that's bad.
And that's the thing that I look at in this circumstance. And again, Cam Janssen asked, the question and knew apparently he pushed if he was looking
let me ask you
this,
he
pushed it.
Do you really think Cam Janssen was asking that question out of the clear blue sky? I do not.
No. What I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is
he
that
slipped him a
I'm
piece
actually
of
giving him
paper.
what I'm doing is giving him credit for pushing the correct button.
Okay.
He slipped him a piece of paper before they pressed go live on that podcast.
Yep.
Okay. Some Olympic new related news. Eric Stahl signs an ATO with the Iowa Wild, presumably to get in shape.
Yeah.
Or get some game work in before he's going to be selected by Team Canada.
They used to be the Iowa Chops. It was so much of a better name. I just want to say that.
Yes, it was. But now the Iowa Wild. So now does this mean that, because we all assume that this is like the Canadian version of Brian Giunta, that Eric Stahl is going to probably want one more kick at the can after the Olympics.
Who knows?
He's living in Minnesota right now. So I don't think Minnesota would be open to him coming.
They don't want him. Garen does not want him.
Yeah. So, Rick Dollawall out of Vancouver is reporting that that Team Canada will name Owen Power and Kent Johnson as two of the players for Team Canada. So I mean,
they're digging deep at Michigan. That's all I can say.
Well, I mean, It seems as if that Michigan is all on board for it, right?
I know they're being really good sports about it. Hopefully nobody gets quarantined, because then I think that would be the game changer on the back end. But so you also had like a roster from one of the other teams, right?
Yeah, I was going to say the Czech Republic released their list earlier this morning, and a couple familiar names like Roman Cervenka. Vladimir Sobotka, but David Krejci and Michael Frolik were also on the list, and obviously no NHL contracts there.
Is Simone Nemec on there?
Let's see here. I don't see him.
Okay, and I guess Juracek could have been if he didn't get hurt. He might have had a shot. What about Svozil?
No. Lucas Sedlak is another former.
Lucas Sedlak's pretty good. No Svozil, really?
I don't see him.
Wow.
Yep. No, I don't see Thomas Kondratiak is another.
Yeah, Kondratiak's a pretty good player.
Yeah. So a few Jakub Juracek, I think, or Jurabek, who played with I think Washington.
Yeah.
Last couple of years. So yeah, I mean, there's some former NHLers there. One interesting note. The IIHF came out and said that no individual NHL players would be allowed to play in the tournament. So anybody who said, "Hey, buy me out or terminate my contract so I can go over there," they wouldn't allow it. They wouldn't even allow, even if an NHL team gave permission.
But you know what it is, Mike? Svozil has a signed contract with Columbus, even though he's playing in the dub.
Okay.
That's why.
Yeah. So anybody with an NHL contract is not.
They can't.
is not going to go over. Now,
Right. I'm sure that's part of the whole situation of the NHL not being involved, that anybody's contractually.
Otherwise, they would have him on the
tied to
team.
a
He's
team.
really good.
well, I was a little surprised at the Bobby Ryan exclusion.
Me too.
But and I know Joe Yerdon was surprised because Bobby Ryan has Olympic experience, but it does appear, Anthony, that the U.S. is going with a very young college team.
Yeah, trying to get those Miracle on Ice vibes going, apparently, right?
Yeah, with who's the kid, Strauss Mann as the playing Jim Craig in the in 2022. I don't know. I mean,
wait, was that his name? He was the guy who was on Friends. Was that his name? No, the guy who, the guy who was on Friends is the guy who played the part of Jim Craig in Miracle. Because I was on a tour, I was on a junket tour for that, and he was like Rachel's boyfriend for a while in Friends, but I forget his name.
Honestly, I don't know.
Yeah.
But I mean,
I have another name for you, Mike. Slakovsky, is he on there?
Slakovsky.
Oh no, he's Slovak. Never mind.
He's not
Get your country straight, Russell.
It's hard, man. It's like,
I know you grew up in the Cold War. You can't help it. It was Czechoslovakia back in the day.
He's not from Bratislava. Come on.
It was Czechoslovakia back then. It was.
So now tonight, Tuukka Rask will make his return to the NHL.
Tuukka
against the Philadelphia Flyers.
I'm happy to see him, though.
Tuukka's going to be like, "Did you miss me? Are y'all done complaining now?"
Yeah,
I
somehow think he's not going to be welcomed back with open arms.
Yeah, I do have to tell you, Mike, Tuukka, the last day before the pandemic, when writers were allowed to talk to players, Tuukka was the goalie. Boston came in. I'm pretty sure Boston won that game. And Tuukka did interview, and players were at least 7 or 8 feet away from the media, but the media was all jammed into the hallway outside of the locker room. So like me, I'm like right next to Kevin Paul DuPont.
We don't care about you media people. Y'all can get sick.
I'll never forget it because, I mean, it was like, that was the new setup. We weren't allowed in the locker room anymore, but we were allowed to stand there.
It's one of those weird things too. It's like when we think about it, it really is the quote. If you want to think about the before times, us all being jammed up in a locker room on top. I think
some of the best things
really the before times.
Go look online and look at some of the expressions on Anthony's face. One was on Scrum Lurkers. It's worthy of repeating and looking at.
Absolutely. Scrum Lurkers. No more Scrum Lurkers now.
not for a while.
Not forever, I don't think.
No, well, yeah, the scrum is the thing of the past, unfortunately. Now, Russ, it was reported yesterday out of Arizona that that Tempe is reportedly rejected the Coyotes' $1.7 billion stadium.
Was there ever a chance for that? No. Can we be realistic? Come on.
No, and this
leaving no desert stone unturned. we will we'll play at a local rink. We'll play at a local skating rink at this point, just so we can keep it in Arizona.
Randy, I have to correct Randy. We know that David Schwimmer was the boyfriend of Rachel on Friends. This guy was a part-time actor on Friends. Came in and was after David Schwimmer, so it was like. After they had the break, when they were on the break, get with it, Randy. All right, anyhow.
When they're on the break.
Yeah, you got to know when you're on the break. Like if you watch Friends, you have to know. Randy, you should leave the chat room. Anyhow, go ahead.
Jeez, wow. But it's like I honestly don't know how many forks you have to stick into this team before they're dead, because honestly, it's just
the Sun Devil pitchfork.
Are we
Eddie Cahill? Eddie Cahill is the actor. There you go.
Cahill. Are they gonna move them to Tucson? They're gonna have a rotate. They're gonna play 10 games in Tucson and 10 games at the America West. I mean, come on. Let's
something else will happen.
Like what?
Like they're going to play somewhere else, whether it's for one season or forever. That's what they're going to do.
Don't they have a new rink?
Who?
Arizona State, don't they have a new rink? Speaking
Yeah,
of
it's
Sunday.
small though. It's a small rink.
Oh, okay.
About
Forget that.
4,000 people or something.
All the rich.
Hey, look, that'll be a sellout.
All the rich family members like Mr. Lemieux, I think Mr. Solani. No, Solani's kid is at BU, but there's a few other former NHLers kids who play there and chipped in for the rink.
I really need to stop taking shots at the Arizona Coyotes. Nah, it's too.
No.
These aren't shots. You know what this is?
This is reality.
This is reality, and we're all like punch drunk over all this that's gone on for the last decade. When we're being told this, it's not the right spot. The fan base is good. It's this, it's that. It's not good. It's never been good.
No, and honestly, when you look at what and if it's about the NHL having a Southwest outpost, we already see what they've done with the Vegas Golden Knights. But again, I get it. The NHL doesn't want to lose. What is Phoenix? The fourth media market in the country, and that's what comes. And that's all this. I think at this point, that's what it comes down to.
It does.
Right.
It really does just come down to they just don't want they don't want egg on their face of not having a franchise in the fourth largest media market in the in the country.
Right, but that's why I said Houston is a viable option because they're also a top 8 or top 9 media market, and that could replace Arizona. It's like, I mean, they've given them enough chances. And wow, Russ had to drop out there. They've given them enough chances, so I don't know. I think it's really a situation that I know that the NHL wants to save face. But really, there's Russ. It's like, wait a second, what happened there?
I hit a button, although I do have to go in 5 minutes. But
we're gonna end right at 3:30. But
it's like zip.
Yeah,
I'm out.
So Flyers Bruins tonight. That's Tuukka Rask's return. The Canucks and Lightning in Tampa. I mean, the Canucks have cooled down a little bit after that 7 games in a row with Bruce Boudreau. I mean, obviously every time
they would.
Yeah. I mean, they were playing superhuman, but I just, the Lightning, they've played the most games in the NHL, I believe, but they're 24-9-5. There was an interesting note here. I think it was Joe Smith in The Athletic that reported, don't expect Brisebois to go out and make a move at the deadline that pretty much he thinks that this is the team.
Okay.
I don't believe that. I think they'll make some move, Russ.
Like one more fun thing, and I forget what outlet had it, but basically Mike Bilberry came out and said the Bruins should trade Jeremy Swayman, and I was thinking, my God, you traded Roberto Luongo. And that deal had Ole Jokinen in it, and they got back Ole Kavasha and Mark Parrish. So what are you going to get now for Jeremy Swayman if you let Mike Milbury handle this deal? Like, isn't it bad enough that he did a bad deal once, but he's willing to do it twice?
That's called commitment to the bit, Russell.
I guess.
Commitment to excrement. that was the phrase of the Oakland Raiders. It wasn't excellence; it was commitment to excrement. Columbus plays the Carolina Hurricanes. Now, there continue to be rumors about Chychrun, and Friedman mentioned this afternoon that the Coyotes, if they do trade him, do not want to trade him to the West. They don't want to trade him to St. Louis or Vegas or Anaheim. They want to trade him east, and that would put Carolina and maybe – I mean, I can't remember.
But here's the thing. If Carolina does trade him now, they are going to lose one of their prized defensemen that they like, whether it's Pesce, whether it's going to be somebody on that level, or they're not going to do the deal. So I understand Don Waddell wants to be in on these discussions, but he's going to have to give up a really good defenseman. He's not going to be able to get away with just prospects on this deal.
I'm actually thinking Florida in this case. Again, we know they're going to be in the market for
Florida makes sense.
I think Florida makes sense. Again, they're also going to be in on Ben. We know they're probably going to be in on Ben Sherrod if he's out there as well. But I could see Chychrun. I could very easily see Chychrun clicking in Florida.
Well, I mean, this is the thing, Russ. I mean, from what Bill, it's not going to be draft picks. It's going to be they want the top prospect. So if it's Florida, they're going to want Lundell.
Yeah, they probably will want Lundell, and it'd be interesting to see if they move off that or not.
Yeah, and if it's
Lundell's their third line center, it's not like they're going to win the Stanley Cup if they trade Lundell.
Right, and if it's Carolina, they probably would want Neckish or Jarvis or like probably a couple players like that. So
it'll be like Jarvis and one of your defensemen, and
and they'll trade him. They'll trade him Jake Gardner's contract so they can so they can.
You always think Florida's. You always think Arizona's going to be the salary dumping ground, Michael.
They are. They're of course they are.
Mike thinks they're the Kansas
Welcome
City
to the Arizona, as I always say.
No. Mike thinks they're
welcome to the Arizona clearinghouse.
The Yankees used to always trade their garbage to the Kansas City A's, and Mike feels like this is what Arizona is in the NHL.
This is reality, and we'll end on this. This is the reality of the situation. With them trading all these guys who are expiring contracts this summer, or before this summer, before the deadline, Kessel, maybe Chikrin, all these guys, they have to stay over the cap floor. They have to get contracts back. So they're gonna have to
take back some salary.
Right.
Now
so
somebody's saying Brady Shea and Jarvis, even that won't be enough.
No. And they've already got 3 number 1s and 5 number 2s. So I don't think throwing in a first or a second. I think they want tangible young assets. They're giving you like Kevin said yesterday, they're giving you a 23-year-old defenseman who is a top pairing guy.
Yeah.
You just can't take the typical first round pick prospect and player. It's got to be more than that.
All right.
Okay. Thanks everybody for watching.
Team Russ. Team Russ.
For Anthony Mangione for Team Russ, I'm Michael Agello. Thanks for watching, and remember, without the buzz, it's just hockey.